Imagine a really tall individual with long, meaty limbs walking in their car. Then all of a sudden, they're scrunching their body, they're maneuvering and contorting to get into their car. Imagine a 6-foot individual trying to get into a really low sports car. People have found an abundance of community because of our lack of ease and access to public transportation. A lot of people get excited about cars, what kind of cars people have, where and when it was made, the modifications to the car even. Speaking of cars, some neighborhoods are more car-friendly than bus-friendly, and we get that influence from valuing material possessions. Places like the United States value being an individual and owning your own car. These systems of infrastructure that we use in Guam and other islands don't consider our collective needs, our landscapes, or our identities. So the United States, using private cars, having money, which in turn determines your worth, or buying material goods to make you feel like a balanced human being, are all key factors of westernization. And this is part of the unsustainable development. Unsustainable development within transportation looks like streets suddenly stopping with neighborhoods called a cul-de-sac. This road system of sudden stops makes it difficult for public transportation, so an easier route that's accessible, affordable, and time-savvy would be a grid rather than the Western idea of a cul-de-sac in a neighborhood. Vroom, 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 vroom. Half a day, this is Tori Manley speaking on Fanachu. Here in this episode, we'll go over the most common modes of transportation, its obstacles, possible solutions, and calls to action. The main thing I want you to know about this episode is that you are doing your best to be sustainable with the best knowledge that you have, and I hope that this episode sparks some ideas, conversations, and connections. These all have a helping hand when it comes to creating a present that will help us in the future. Nihi Ta Tutuhon. Imagine a multi-generation household with kids, young adults, middle-aged adults, and grandparents. Imagine the morning times when each room is buzzing with alarm clocks. Everyone's getting dressed, everyone's taking turns to go to the bathroom, making breakfast, bumping into everyone at every turn because the mornings are hectic and you're all just trying to get somewhere. After this festive morning routine, imagine the transportation situation. According to Guam 2020 annual report of the Department of Public Works, Office of Highway Safety, Guam has an estimate of 131,000 vehicles on the road, not including two-wheelers. That means mopeds, motorcycles, bicycles, stuff. In other words, 8 out of every 10 people have a car on Guam. Imagine this multi-generational family where all the adults go to work, all the kids go to school. Figuring out everyone's schedules, like who has the car or who is going to opt to stay home because of transportation hardships. A personal vehicle on Guam is a necessity, but also a privilege. The process from getting your driver's license to buying a car all the way to the maintenance can be incredibly costly. However, having a personal vehicle per household is the main way people get around on Guam. Guam is only 210 square miles. That's what the map says. You can get from point A to point B under 15 minutes, which is what every person that's ever been late to anything would say. When you're stuck in traffic on the main road during the busiest hours of the day, what do? You think about turning off your engine, saving some gas while you're in traffic. That's not safe. Please don't do that. So some of the obstacles for owning a car is overpopulation of cars on Guam, which creates traffic congestion, poor air quality, and a high fuel demand. So there's an illustration that I've seen on social media, either Facebook or Instagram or both, and I've seen two sides of the same coin when it comes to transportation. The photo shows 20 individual cars with one person in each car, or a bus filled with 20 people. So that is a perfect situation, having public transportation on Guam. Waiting for your bus in an adequate and beautiful clean shelter is super ideal. Having notifications on your phone, clicking your bus ticket, walking into an air-conditioned bus when it arrives on time, and to finally have a seat in a clean, comfortable, and reliable bus. I want to turn your gears into riding the bus. So according to the Director of Transportation, in 2022, which might be Vincent P. Areola, at the time in 2022, I was doing research on transportation, and I had a conversation with him like, hey, what's going on with the buses? Everyone wanted to know what was going on with the buses, and he said that we need more people to ride the bus so the Department of Transportation can have more funding. In turn, while I was doing my research, I was asking local residents, like, why don't you ride the bus? And they were just saying they were waiting for it to be reliable, accessible, and time efficient before they even think about getting on the bus. As collective individuals, we can help transportation become more accessible, affordable, and diverse. Public transportation is ideal, but let's continue over to carpooling. What would encourage people to carpool? The road most traveled by high occupancy vehicles. So the encouragement hopefully is called an HOV lane access. High occupancy vehicles, or HOV lanes, are reserved for carpoolers, allowing them to bypass traffic and reach their destinations faster. This privilege can save time, and it also encourages people to carpool, further reducing congestion on regular lanes. We could decrease the wear and tear of roads, thus making the needs for repairs less frequent if fewer cars are on the road. In other words, Guam could put money into infrastructure that helps Guam and other Micronesian islands develop sustainably. Imagine a free up of funding that can go to other needs if we carpooled as much as we could. My call to action to you is to find people that you think would be great carpool buddies. Imagine you and your friends, your classmates, your coworkers can half or fraction the cost of gas money. Coordinate with friends, classmates, coworkers, anyone you can think of about sharing rides. Of course, there are other alternatives, such as having a personal car or carpooling with others. Remember that family we mentioned at the beginning of our episode? Well, now our manamku, the two elders of the house, are ready to paint the town red. They're ready to go out. They want to rendezvous with their posse, go to Chamorro village to have lunch. All the drivers of the household are at work. Darn. There is no private car available at the house, and none of the other relatives are available to take our manamku to where they need to go, so now we have to check rideshare. For the sake of this episode, the manamku in our story have Stroll or a ride-sharing app on their phone. So now, imagine our dear manamku waiting outside of the house in their best blouse and their trousers, and they get a notification that their driver has canceled their request to be picked up. A possible solution could be for the Department of Transportation to begin a hiring process of a certain number of people to be a rideshare, or to pair people together to create a driver and passenger opportunity. I have a super curious thought. Imagine if the Department of Transportation created a program that offered people jobs to drive their passengers around. When you finally get to the job fair, it's a ride-share idea by the Department of Transportation to hire local individuals to drive people. After you've been vetted for the job, your car is up to standard, and you get your training, you get to decide who you want to drive around as your passenger. You get to determine your hours. The passenger talks to you about scheduling, and you get paid by the government. That would be such a fun program. It doesn't have all of the holes addressed, but it could be a program that brings people together and fosters economic and environmental resilience. Imagine the distance you've accomplished on a bicycle and you feel so proud of your body. You congratulate your cardio system for getting you uphill, and imagine the intense gravity downhill on a bicycle. So cycling on Guam reminds me how precious life is. It's a wonderful daydream to ride your bike, but cycling on Guam can be more challenging than daydreaming. Did you ever have those moments when you met with friends and you're all going to do an activity that you really enjoy doing together, like crafting or gardening? You could also cycle together. Cycling is a really fun way to get around. You can also use that to make friends and keep your mind and your body in alignment with itself. So Guam has many cycling groups that can be found with a quick search, either through Google, Instagram, Facebook, or other social media platforms and search engines. When you choose to cycle, you are choosing to spend the energy stored in our bodies instead of fossil fuels. Have you ever experienced going downhill in Guam? It can easily make someone remember their mortality. I remember when I was younger, going downhill, it was really difficult to control my bike. And one day, as I was going downhill, I couldn't stop. So for some reason, I just turned my wheel to the right, and it completely flipped my entire bike over, and I fell into a ditch. The safety concerns are a huge reason many people don't bike on Guam. On top of safety concerns, the heat from getting from one place to another can be incredibly unbearable. And once you get to your destination, ew, what's that smell? Yeah, it could be a really stinky situation. Imagine when your smelly self gets to that destination and you have to put up your bike somewhere, you have to park it. There's hardly ever any adequate place to put your bicycle. And then you're all sweaty and you're really tired and it's really hot and it's uncomfortable. These are just a few obstacles why people don't ride bikes on Guam. We have some solutions for you from the Pacific Daily News. Tom Renfro is from Dedido, and he writes that Guam needs bicycle paths. In his article, he writes a few solutions, such as a reduction in premiums for health and car insurance for cyclists. So healthier people who ride to work or school shouldn't have to pay so much for insurance. And they don't use their cars sometimes. So workplaces can provide employees with incentives cycle to work. So for example, every time an employee rides their bicycle to work, they get an extra dollar added to their paycheck. So healthier workers are more productive workers. Cycling to work on Guam is bound to create sweaty employees before the work even begins. So workplaces should also have showers and changing rooms. This can be a way to attract employees to work at certain places or companies. A shower and cycling incentives can show how much the company cares for their employees and the environment. Another suggestion was service learning hours or extra credit could be given to high school students who cycle to school. And lastly, hotels can provide hotel guests with a map of the central bike route and where there are places to rent bikes. Cycling to school, to work, or if you're visiting Guam and you want to cycle, they can be possible with changing rooms and showers and incentives and adequate parking for these bicycles. My call to action for you is that if this calls to you, start cycling for your body, for your health. Either way, it's good for you and the environment. And if you have a bike, you can try to go longer distances. If you don't have a bike, they're really easy to find on Facebook or Craigslist. You can buy them secondhand. You can make it a goal to go short distances for as much as possible. If you also are blessed with a vehicle, you can pack your bicycle in your vehicle, so when you need to go places, you can park your car in a centralized location and bike to and from anywhere you need to go in the area. That's also something I do, and it's really, really fun. Another small time way of transportation is walking. In Guam, finding a sidewalk is equivalent to finding a really lovely quote from a billboard. In some societies, they really, really need that lovely quote on a billboard. On Guam, it's just super nice to have. In Guam, we drive places in order to walk. Imagine choosing locations on Guam to get your exercise in. Driving over to Paseo, you're taking time out of your day to go walk. And then you have to drive to your next destination. We get to go to designated spots to walk. Imagine if we could walk everywhere on Guam. Imagine walking on top of sturdy sidewalks and being protected by the harsh sun, by beautiful canopy trees. Imagine a cool breeze meeting you and greeting you while you're walking. Imagine the heat being dispersed by fresh green leaves. I imagine more people walking if it looked like that. I imagine neighborhoods, small shops, like mom and pop stores every few feet with all the items you could need. I imagine the cutest local bakery that makes lemai or breadfruit chips and cakes and cookies and rosquetti. In a walkable Guam, I also might dare to imagine bike lanes right next to me as I'm walking. So it is walking and then biking and then cars. I imagine a sturdy bus stop to hide from the rain while I'm walking. I also imagine an entire street as I pass by being closed off for local farmers and small businesses to sell their goods and services. So having obesity can be a huge hindrance to everyday mobility and exercise. If having the condition of obesity is uncomfortable already, then imagine how difficult it could be for anyone, regardless of health and fitness, to walk around Guam. So these obstacles also look like a lack of sidewalks, a lack of trees providing comfortable shade, and safety concerns. This can all stop people from walking. And there is unfortunately a very real issue with violent crime. So according to Guam Green Growth statistics that is available for anyone, there is at least 200 violent crimes out of 1,000 Guam inhabitants. Violent crime is usually a sign of feeling out of abundance, where you're feeling lack, despair, and hopelessness. And obesity is usually a sign of excess, imbalance, and a dis-ease on our island. Our people have health problems and there's violence. How are we supposed to create a walkable area in these already pre-existing conditions? Whew! It can feel really overwhelming, but creating conscious effort with choices can create big collective change. So imagine you're driving around at night and then all of a sudden someone runs across the street. You only saw them by the grace of your headlight. Your heart palpitates. You scrunch your fingers against the steering wheel and you think to yourself, oh my goodness, my night could have gone very, very differently. In your imagination, you may not have seen the crossing pedestrian, but thankfully you did. A possible solution to make Guam more walkable is more crosswalks, especially when there are places with no crosswalks at all to be found. Another imaginative solution would be to allow establishments, businesses, and private homes to help take care of the sidewalks, especially if there's some initiative in it, boop, boop, and allow the option of planting trees for shade for the sidewalks. And maybe one day we'll be able to walk to a comfortable bus stop and get picked up by a reliable bus. Public transportation. So imagine rearranging your whole life on the public transportation system. All of your decisions are based off of the scheduling and availability of the transportation system. It was many years ago, but I met a woman at a climate protest. She's Japanese and she's lived on Guam for 15 years at the time. She told me that she rides the bus to lower her emissions and that she's been doing it for over 10 years on Guam. Let's send her some positive tea. So according to the Guam Regional Transit Authority website, Guam has 29 buses in service and 12 staff members. Guam Regional Transit Authority has enough staff and enough buses, but they need more riders. So if an average worker avoided using their car to go to work for at least 2 days out of the week, their greenhouse gas emissions would be reduced by about 1,600 pounds per person per year. If there was a chance for people to know what I want them to know, is that the transportation issues here on Guam is not because of us as individuals. It is because of the unsustainable development by militarization. The military had an idea, they had a plan, and they did not involve any of our needs, our identities, and a lot of our social structures in mind when it came to transportation. For the Americanized ideologies, the way America does things, they don't value doing things collectively or together. It's a very segregated country. They believe in separation to the maximum effort. They believe in having their own private cars. Nothing is shared and everything is owned. It is very monoculture, just like the cornfields that took over America for cultivation to eat. Cars have definitely taken over here, whereas we could be walking if it was more comfortable. The unsustainable use of land space and the ill consideration of what we may need as a people, as human beings, was not considered. And none of that is our fault. My humblest call of action to you is to find out what the candidates you are voting for believe in and what they're going to implement when it comes to transportation and other issues that you care about. Another call to action is to do the smallest of steps that you can do in order to work towards this collective goal of sustainability. Another call to action for you is to simply have open-minded, open-ended conversations with people that are different from you, people that don't share your identity or they do share your identity. We can also be carpooling with our friends when we go somewhere. We can only advocate for a more sustainable, accessible, and safer transportation option if we do our best with the really big and the really small choices. To me, it looks like everyone's basic needs to get from point A to point B are met. To me, it means there are fewer and fewer people being left behind, and it looks like nobody's ashamed because they don't own a car. It's not even a thought anymore. Yeah.